You are listening to the Mississippi Department of Rehabilitation Services podcast, The All-Inclusive, where we bring you the latest news and information about our services for Mississippians with disabilities. On today's podcast, we are talking about assistive technology and how it helps Mississippians with disabilities live more independently. Here to tell us about assistive technology is Executive Director Chris Howard.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank y'all so much for joining our latest podcast. Today's podcast is on assistive technology. And I tell you, when you look at assistive technology and you just think about your normal life, in your normal life, we have smart TVs, we have Ring doorbells, we have garage door openers. You think about everything on a vehicle right now. I mean, that is all technology we use in our normal life. But when you think about an individual with a disability and the technology that is available to individuals, I'm telling y'all, there is so much out there to help individuals with disabilities live independently in their home, in their community, but also to assist individuals in working, in having that great career. So, technology is such an important part of everyday life for so many people that here at the Mississippi Department of Rehab Services, we are so excited to have our own assistive technology division. I mean, this is a division that we feel is so important to our agency and the people we serve that we actually keep this division in-house. This division is part of the Mississippi Department of Rehabilitation Services. And again, it is a division that provides so many great services to help individuals all across this great state. So, with me today, I've got Mr. Chris Giroux. Chris is the Director of Assistive Technology. A good friend of mine, great heart for what we do and for this program. So, I guess, Chris, first of all, thanks for being on today.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right, I've got a few questions for you. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, first thing, tell the listeners why you are so passionate about assistive technology.
Well, I've been in a wheelchair for over 30 years, and when you have a disability, you have to fend for yourself. You have to modernize, and you have to accessorize a lot of things that most people take for granted in everyday living. So I've always been interested in how I could make things better for myself, which in turn helps my clients with the Department of Rehabilitation as well as others.
Yeah, I tell you, you talk about, serving other people. So I guess my next question is, why is assistive technology so important to MDRS and those we serve?
Well, I think everybody with a disability needs some sort of assistive technology. Like you couldn't be sitting down right now without that chair. That's kind of a stretch that a chair is a piece of assistive technology, but you have to use it to sit down. So every client that we have has a disability to overcome, to live independently or get to work or go to school. So all the AT that we recommend serves some purpose that they couldn't automatically do without AT.
Okay, so when you talk about, assisting individuals, across our agency, we have counselors on the vocational rehab and vocational rehab for the blind side. And then on the special disability program side, we have case managers. But really, they both kind of do the same thing in a sense of they're serving individuals with disabilities. So when you look at VR and VRB, these counselors are helping an individual with a disability, reach their employment goal, help them find that great career. But when you look at special disability programs, those case managers are actually doing services to help individuals stay in their home, in their communities, with their families. So, a lot of great work goes on across the state. So when you look at that, when you look at your job and your evaluating your AT folks' job, tell me how your folks work with our counselors and our case managers to really make those outcomes a reality.
Well, when any case manager or counselor identifies that a client is having a difficulty entering their home, getting to work, performing their tasks in the university environment, they're going to send a referral to us as professionals. As we do a lot of training, we do a lot of working together and discussing different clients to go in and make the appropriate recommendations for that client, whether they need a ramp, a wider bathroom door, a roll-in shower, Zoom Text, which is adaptive software for someone with visual impairments. We're going to make a recommendation based on their disability and based on what they're needing to do, something that you or I, or not necessarily me, but you or an able-bodied person can already do. Like an able-bodied person can go into their bathroom. Well, if the door is not wide enough, somebody in a wheelchair may not be able to fit. So that's why we'll make our recommendations to the case managers or counselors as to what their clients will be needing.
Yeah, so when you think about that, I mean, when you think about home modifications, I mean, like you mentioned, there's so much that goes into a home modification. If you live on the coast, a lot of the houses near the house have to be off the ground, right?
Yes, closer to the water.
Yeah, and if you're in the Delta, say, for example, those houses may be off the ground because of possible flooding. And then you're talking about mobile homes. So there is a large need across the state for ramps. And, we hear stories all the time about, individuals who maybe don't have a ramp or in a wheelchair actually having to be picked up by family members and help them get into their house. So, you think about that. You can't get into your home. The house that you live in, the house you reside in, you can't get into it. But because of the work that y'all do, you can go out and inspect those ramps out, and then we put them out for bid. And you're actually allowing people to get in their homes and be safe and through the home modifications of, like you said, widening doors and rolling showers and grab bars. We're really making a difference in people's lives.
Probably one of the most difficult obstacles to overcome with somebody with a mobility impairment who uses a wheelchair or a scooter or who has had a stroke and can't walk very well is finding a place to live. Accessible homes are not the norm. Everybody puts a two-foot bathroom door in the hallway bathroom. Well, that never works for somebody with a disability. So making homes accessible is probably the biggest part of our job, but it is the biggest factor to living independently in the community for someone with a disability or somebody who uses a mobility device.
Okay, and that's very good. So, we talked about home modifications. So, tell me some of the other stuff that y'all work with our counselors and case managers on. Again, we talked a lot about home modifications, but I know there are a lot of other things that AT is involved in to help counselors and case managers make good decisions to help, our clients. So, what are some of the other things y'all do?
Another big part of what we do is vehicle modifications. 40 years ago, the only thing that you could drive was a full-size van with a lift. A lot of people used two-door cars because they could fold their wheelchair and put it in the back. Well, there's so many more options out there with vehicle modifications now. As there are trucks that the entire side is welded together and it lifts up to allow someone in a power chair to be seated in the driver's area to actually drive a pickup truck. 30 years ago, that was unheard of. So there's constant improvements in technology that allow people with disabilities and people with mobility impairments and people who use mobility aids, such as wheelchairs or what have you, to drive different vehicles. I mean, there weren't many options to drive, and we have lowered floor minivans that a ramp rolls out. You roll right up in, either drive from your chair or drive from the driver's seat. But the technology is constantly changing and improving because people are getting hurt every day. And a lot of times people that new injuries or people just start thinking about things and say, I want to do something like that, or I want to be able to do this. And that's where improvements in technology and assistive technology progress to what we have today.
You think about this, every time you turn on your TV, it seems like there's a new iPhone coming out. When you look at these smart TVs, if I remember right, we started out, I think, with plasma. Then we went to LCD. Then it was LED. Now it's 4K. And, of course, TVs are smart now where you can actually get apps and things on your TV. So, you think about all the changes in technology, and really you think about all the changes in such a short period of time. It seems like every 6 months there's something new coming out on TV or telephone-wise. But, that's also true for technology for individuals with disabilities. I know that the technology is constantly changing. There's always new things out there to help a person live more independently in their home, or maybe some great technology out there to help individuals, do their jobs. So, with y'all being our assistive technology division and y'all being kind of the expert, or actually being the experts in technology, how do y'all stay abreast of what's the latest and greatest so that you can help counselors and case managers make good decisions and really pick things that are really going to help individuals and change lives?
Well, pre-COVID, we attended numerous conferences per year, lots of trainings to earn CEUs, to stay abreast of the changing in technology. When COVID started, I was looking for something for my staff to stay busy since they couldn't get out. So I required them to watch 2 webcasts or educational videos per week in order to learn new things. And we would always discuss it together to say, hey, I learned about this, which my staff they weren't watching the same webcasts every week, each person. They were all picking 2 different ones. So we would come together and discuss what Brent learned, or what Alicia learned, or what Jamelia learned, and then I would discuss what I saw, and just to try and, you can't really keep up because there are things going on all over the world right now that, they've made this new invention in China. And some of the things I've found out about based on my 25 years of playing wheelchair tennis, I would meet guys all over the place. If you've ever seen the little kid that does the flips in a wheelchair and lands on the other side of the ramp, well, that chair was built by a friend of mine named John Box, and he has his own company. And I just got a call from a counselor yesterday about a client who's really rough on the wheelchair, and he wants to have one of these John Box chairs. So a lot of my knowledge comes from talking with friends that I've known for 30 years. But we try to stay abreast by just looking at different webcasts and being self-starters and just researching different technology.
All right, so Chris, when you talk about wheelchairs, you mentioned it briefly earlier. A lot of people think, understanding there's different kind of seating and the joysticks and things like that on a wheelchair, but a lot of people don't think about the actual wheels. You mentioned tennis. I know there's a special kind of wheel that goes on a wheelchair for tennis. But the other thing that I think is really cool are the track chairs. When you look at Mississippi, of course, y'all know I'm a big deer hunter. So, deer season opens October 1st and goes through January 31st. So Mississippi has a really long hunting season. And, I've got some friends who are in wheelchairs, and they utilize these track chairs to be able to get out and hunt. And to see those chairs, they're really pretty cool. And on the flip side of that, if you've got someone who's maybe employed as a real estate agent selling land, this is also an opportunity for that individual to keep selling land because they can utilize those track chairs to show the land. So I guess talk a little bit about the chairs and the technology behind those.
Well, I want to talk to you about a wheel that a friend of mine developed. He was an engineer, and this particular wheel, it's a power assist wheel that can go on a manual wheelchair, because not everybody's environment is set up for them to be able to use a power chair. A manual chair is much smaller, much more maneuverable, and this power assist wheel will allow somebody with very limited hand and arm strength to actually utilize a manual wheelchair. It comes with a Bluetooth that you wear on your wrist, you tap the wheel, and it goes. And that piece of technology it's I don't know how to call it, revolutionary, because not everybody has the ability to be able to transport a power chair. This way they can stay in a manual chair. It can be put in their vehicle in the trunk if somebody else is, loading it for them, but they don't have to go to a power chair. When you go to a power chair, which I've been in a manual chair for 25 years, I've only been in a power chair the last 4 or 5, it's a game changer. There's a huge difference, and my walls at home can attest to it. So I'm not the best power chair operator, but it's a whole new world. So if you can stay in a manual chair it just opens up so many other doors for you. But that's another part of technology, just like you're talking about the track chairs. I always hunted out of a four-wheeler because there was no track chair until 5 or 6 years ago. So that's another piece of technology that's constantly changing because somebody said, I want to go out in my backyard. How can I get there? I can't get there in this manual chair. I rarely go in the grass in a power chair. But this track chair can go through mud and, through a creek bank, through a flooded timber field. So the technology is constantly changing, but it comes from people who have an idea about, I want to do something. Hey, can you tell me, how can I do this? Well, let's get together and we'll talk to somebody else and we'll make it work and we'll figure it out and we'll, I guess you'd say, invent something. And that happens all the time.
This is what I love about podcasts because, podcasts are conversations. So, as you're talking, I'm sitting here thinking of other questions because, AT it's such a great thing for individuals. So, as you're talking, I'm sitting there thinking and something came to mind. Again, in Mississippi, we have a lot of farming communities. And, I learned recently of a modification we did to a tractor, for an individual who was in a wheelchair or is in a wheelchair. And we were able to modify his tractor so that he could keep doing what he loves, and that's farming. So, I know you've been involved a lot in modifications and AT equipment for the farming industry. Talk a little bit about, how we do that in Mississippi, how we can provide assistive technology to allow a farmer who's been injured keep doing what they love, and that's farming.
Several years ago, we were partners in the Agro-Ability Project, which was getting farmers who became disabled back into the farming community. There's lots of different modifications that you can use for the farming environment, which I'm not a farmer, but I've learned after meeting with clients, they need to be able to access more than one tractor on occasion. But they also need to be able to get off that tractor in case of a fire out in the middle of the cornfield. There's a company out of Wisconsin called Life Essentials, and they specifically design different types of lifts for all types of tractors and combines and bush hogs and things of that nature. We actually have a client in the Delta who is a sod farmer. His father helps him with the books part of it, but he's got his own lift, lifts him up onto his tractor. He goes out, cuts all the fields, comes back, takes himself off the tractor back into his wheelchair with a lift, with a piece of assistive technology.
Well, Chris, man, I appreciate you being on because, that is really some great information. There's so much information out there to help individuals, again, live independently and be in the workplace. And it's such a cool thing to hear all the different technology out there. So, I encourage anyone who may be listening, if you have a disability and you need some assistive technology, you feel the technology will help you live more independently in your home or in the workplace, give us a call, 1-800-443-1000. Because, again, as you heard from Chris, there's just so much technology out there to help every individual who needs our services. So, again, call us at 1-800-443-1000, and we can get you hooked up with a counselor or a case manager. So, again, Chris, thanks for being with me today. Thanks for taking my questions and providing those awesome responses. So we're going to jump to break, and we'll be right back.
We'll be right back with more about assistive technology. Stay with us. At the Mississippi Department of Rehabilitation Services, our employees are dedicated to making a difference in the lives of Mississippians with disabilities. Thousands have been helped by our services. If you are looking for a new career or you want to learn more about our services that could help you live more independently, we are here to help. Please visit our website at mdrs.ms.gov. And now we rejoin our MDRS podcast, The All-Inclusive, as we continue our discussion about the Assistive Technology Division.
All right, thank y'all for rejoining us back from the break. We are talking about assistive technology. within the Mississippi Department of Rehab Services. So the next person I have with me today on our podcast is Miss Melinda Williams. Melinda is a vocational rehab counselor at the beautiful Mississippi Gulf Coast. So Melinda, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
If you'll tell our listeners a little bit about your story and some of the assistive technology that you're utilizing to do such a great job as a counselor within the Mississippi Department of Rehab family.
Well, I'm not sure how far you want me to go back. When I started with this agency in 2005, I started out as a computer teacher at a blind center that we had in Tupelo. And I learned so much by working in that position. I've had the opportunity to realize there is so much technology that is amazing for the blind population and visually impaired. I personally choose JAWS as a screen reader. There are many choices. JAWS there's no magnification, but the magnification doesn't really help me. So I use it strictly voice, and it helps me to navigate the internet pretty much anywhere. Most sites now are accessible, and you just have to use it and learn it. And the more you use it, the better you get. Then I use on a daily basis, I definitely use JAWS. I have something called what most people know as a CCTV. Now there are many choices for those as well. The one I have, pretty much its purpose for me is to sign, because I do have some light perception. So I can find the signature line and things like that. Pretty much is all I can do, some spot reading. I can't really sit and read on there. Most things are audio for me. Taking notes, it has been such a blessing through the years to have different versions of note takers. And when I was in college, I don't know how else I could do it. I would record, but to have a note taker when those came out really made a difference. And then now, just being out of college, I can take notes, meeting with clients. I can take notes in trainings and presentations. I can put my outline, since I can't read a card, as most people would have their notes to read while they're giving a presentation. So now I use my voice note. It's the one that I use. Also, another piece of technology that I use pretty much daily is a scanner. And there are many different scanners as well. The one I use is standalone. It's portable. It's 3 to 5 pounds, and it charges, so I can take it anywhere. With the scanner, I can read anything that is typed. And so this has really opened up my reading world. So everything doesn't have to be audiobooks. I can read regular books. I love books. And I used to not want to put them on the scanner because I felt like I was breaking the spine of the book. But now I've learned, through the years, I've learned how to do it, and it doesn't mess up the book too much. So I've been able to read. I can read anything now. So that's really freedom and amazing.
Melinda, thank you so much for being on our podcast today. Next up, we have Mr. Kenneth Salas. He is our Deputy Director over our Assistive Technology Division. So, Kenneth, thank you, man, for being on our podcast today.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right, first question I've got for you is, as our Deputy Director, what is your role in serving individuals with disabilities through the Assistive Technology Division?
Well, as the Deputy Director of Assistive Technology, I pretty much assist Mr. Chris Giroux on many of the duties that our team, our staff have to do on a daily basis. So in that capacity, a lot of times when Chris is unable to do something, when he steps out, I step in. We assist many of our team members with training, making sure they're up to speed to be able to handle any situation. And also, I kind of get in there sometimes. So if there's a team member who's having some problems with, probably being overwhelmed, I go in and help out. If there's a team member that's kind of stuck, I help them with the research. It is a process of pretty much making sure that the team still has some cohesiveness. It is the communication between Mr. Giroux and me and upper management here within the agency and OSDP and VR, just kind of putting all of those things together to make sure that we have the appropriate people at the right time to make things happen. And like I said, it's all about training. Of course, we want to make sure that our people are always trained, dedicated. They're the professionals here. So when someone is having a problem, I step in. When someone needs some relief, I step in. When there's some fires to put out, I step in. So there's a whole bunch of things that goes along, but the end results is a cohesive team, some teamwork between me and Mr. Giroux to make sure that we're serving this agency to the best of our capacity.
That's awesome, Kenneth. Let me ask you another question. Chris and I talked about this earlier. We talked about home modifications, and we talked about widening doors, rolling showers, grab bars, and things like that. But, there really is a lot of planning that has to go into a home modification when you're talking about ripping out walls or moving showers or doing floors or what have you. It's just a lot of planning that goes into that. So I guess if you will, kind of tell our listeners, some of the work that y'all do in planning for a home modification.
First of all, you have to consider that no two situations are always the same. Here with Assistive Technology, some of the things we do is not cookie cutter. So when we go in and we interview many other people to do an assessment, we're taking detailed measurements. We're taking pictures. We're working hand in hand with the contractors, and we're coming up with the best floor plan to help fit that situation. You may go into a house where you may see a lot of challenges, where the bathroom may be too small, or the closet is buttoned up against it, or doorways aren't wide enough, or even situations where to get in and out of the house, the rise is too high. So many of our staff members, we work together. There are some challenges that you may have seen before that I haven't seen. So we're constantly communicating with each other. And we have to put the pencil to the paper. We take those detailed measurements. We go to a program that's called AutoCAD, where we put in those measurements. We actually draw it out. We actually spec it out. We do all the appropriate research to learn about universal design, to see what's going on in the disabled community, to see what's the most effective approach. And most importantly, we work with that counselor. We work with that construction worker who's actually won the bid on the job. Everything doesn't go as well as we plan sometimes, but that's why we're all working together. So the final product in the end is a whole lot of work, but it took a whole lot of work to get it there. And there's a whole lot of planning that goes into it. So the end result of a modified bathroom is something that started with a bathroom that was not accessible. The end result of a modified home is a process where it started out where maybe that client couldn't get into the home, or they had a rise that was too high, or they had a door that was too small. I heard Chris say earlier about most of the time when you go into a home, there's never no thought process when that house was first built about, an aging population, or that someone that's disabled may have to utilize that bathroom one day. So typically you go into a bathroom that has a 24-inch door. So our staff people are trained to know what's acceptable as far as AT, what's acceptable as far as the ADA. So we may widen that door. We may rip out a tub. We may raise a commode. There's a whole lot of planning that goes into the process, but our people are really dedicated, trained, and we're ready to do it each and every time.
Man, awesome response. I'll tell you what, let's transition now to vehicle mods. Again, home mods are so extremely important, but so are vehicle modifications because, you think about that, transportation is so important for maybe an individual who's working, getting to and from work. Maybe transportation is needed to get to the grocery store, or to a doctor's appointment, or to church on Sunday morning. I mean, transportation, again, is so important for individuals, well, for all of us, but especially for individuals with disabilities, to make sure they can transition to the vehicle and in some cases drive a vehicle. So I guess briefly talk about the work AT does through, providing, speccing out vehicle modifications.
I'm glad you mentioned the vehicle modification aspect, because that is truly a challenge within the disabled community. Many of our clients who don't have vehicles or who rely on public transportation are pretty much at a disadvantage. So when we get a referral that someone wants to be able to transport their chair or want to be able to drive, we send one of our team members out to do an assessment of that vehicle. First of all, that person has to have a valid driver's license or permit or has had some sort of driving evaluation. And we would also provide a driving evaluation if that's necessary. Of course, there are certain criteria that that vehicle has to meet to make sure that we can modify it. But I want to stress to people, all too often I get phone calls about the minimal qualification for hand controls and spinner knobs. There are none. Any vehicle that's on the road, we can put hand controls and spinner knobs on it. It's just a matter of we can't make that recommendation. Of course, we have to have a driving evaluation. But then things tend to get a little bit more complicated sometimes. So a vehicle may need a lift. A vehicle may need a lowered floor. So that's when our people actually go out and make sure we document that the client has a driver's license, that the client has proof of insurance, that the vehicle actually belongs to them. And then we take into consideration the sort of device that they're trying to transport and their limitations and their disability. And from there, we work hand in hand with the vendor to come up with the best method. And like I said, of course, that vehicle has to have an X amount of miles on it, has to be within a certain year. But the end result is a person who is truly independent in their daily life. They don't have to wait for you or I to come by anymore and say, let me give you a lift to the store. If that person has the freedom to get out the home, to get into their own vehicle and drive, you'll be amazed at what that does for self-confidence. You know, that builds self-esteem. That makes a person really realize that I am empowered to do what I want to do. Transportation is freedom. Mm-hmm. And when we allow our clients to actually participate in that process of being able to get out of the home themselves, drive themselves to wherever they need to go, to purchase groceries, or even to go to a concert, or just to go say hello to a friend, or go to church, we, are a part of that process. And it is a valuable process that, that we do and offer to our clients. And they can actually, if they have a need and a want, and they have the equipment, we can help them. So they have to get a counselor. They have to make sure that they're talking to the right people to get that referral to us. And once that referral comes to us and it's put in our hands, we're going to guarantee that we do everything we can to make sure that that vehicle can be modified to fit the needs of that person. Now, in the real world, the need is there, but all the time, you can't do everything to a vehicle what that client needs. So, that's why I was saying sometimes you have to make sure that you have the right vehicle to match the appropriate device. So X amount of miles, the year, whatever the case may be. But we offer consultations. So if you feel like you are in need of vehicle modification, that's not a problem to give us a call. We can walk you through the process and we can make sure that we can get you going.
Good deal, man. Great answer. And I've known you and I've known Chris for a number of years, and y'all always do a fantastic job through Assistive Technology. And I can be on this podcast today to assure our listeners that, we have probably one of the best AT departments in the country. I mean, to look at the work that y'all do every day and how you serve our clients. And as our listeners hear you and Chris both speak, you definitely have the passion. You definitely have the passion and desire to help individuals across the state. So, I do want to thank you for your service and thank Chris for his service. So I guess the final question is, someone listening today, if they're like, man, these sound like fantastic services, I could really utilize these services, what's the process?
Well, first of all, we need to make sure we're doing things like this podcast to get the word out. We always hear that we are the best kept secret, so we don't need to be the best kept secret anymore. Many people within the state are empowered to be a part of that process. Within our different counties and different towns and different cities here, we have people in the field that person can simply reach out to, a representative of the agency, or they can go to the website and put in and start that referral process. But you have to have a counselor, first of all. So, if you're a person with a disability, Mississippi Department of Rehabilitation Services is the place that we can help you. So wherever your city is, whatever county you are in, you reach out to that local part of our agency and you get you a counselor. whether it's VR or OSDP, or even the Adam McBride Center. So it begins with that counselor. Once that counselor goes out and meets that person and decides that that individual has a need, then the referral process begins. They put in the referral, it comes to the Assistive Technology department. It goes to Mr. Giroux, it goes to Ms. Lynn, and they decide within the geographical area of whoever that representative is to get that referral. And once they send us that referral, we get our margin orders, and now we're here to do business.
Good deal. That's a perfect way to close it out. So, I guess to our listeners out there, if you're an individual with a disability, or if you have a family member who has a disability, or someone in your church or in your work or wherever, if you know someone who could utilize these great services, give us a call at 1-800-443-1000, or you can go on our website at mdrs.ms.gov, and in the top left-hand corner, there's a place you can click on called Locator Services. And you can enter your county, and it will tell you the closest office in your area. But again, some great things happening today. Some great conversation about assistive technology and all the great benefits out there that we can help individuals live independently in their home and also through employment. So, Chris, Kenneth, and everyone else who joined today, thank you all so much for being on this podcast. Thank you for helping us get the word out, and I just, really excited about the future of this agency and how we can continue to serve individuals, especially through yours and Chris's leadership on the AT side. So thank y'all again. Thank y'all for listening today. God bless y'all, and we look forward to presenting something very soon to y'all.
Thank you for listening to The All-Inclusive, the MDRS podcast bringing you the latest news and information about our services for Mississippians with disabilities. Be sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube to catch our latest podcast. Thanks again for joining us.